Hello guys, Bogdan Bratis from SaaSpot here, and today we're going to talk about how to grow a podcast in 2026. Now, it is not a lot different than 2025. However, this video is going to be special because we're going to talk about certain tips, certain ideas that maybe you never thought about when it comes to podcasting, because most videos online will talk about podcasting from a downloads perspective, like how we grow a podcast to get the most amount of downloads. Now, downloads are great and definitely we want to achieve that, but that's not the only thing that you should look at when it comes to your podcast. So measuring a podcast is quite tricky because the success of a podcast is not just downloads, it's also the authority that is built around your podcast, is how many inquiries you get on your website because of your podcast. Let's say how many leads you get from your podcast if you're a business running a podcast. There are many things you need to think about when you run a podcast and how you measure its success. I'm going to show you a few tricks today that will definitely grow your podcast beyond just downloads. Now, let's get straight into it. The first tip is an obvious one. However, if you don't do this right, everything that I'm going to share in this video may not work, and you won't believe how many people don't do this. And that's content first, guest second. Now, what do I mean by that? You see, most people, when they start a podcast, they have an idea of the show, they've got a topic, they've got a name, and a general idea of what they want to talk about and who they want to target. Now, the content that gets created is usually really boring. And the reason for that is because people go and find guests and they try to create a narrative around that guest. They try to create some sort of story around the guest. And sometimes that may work, sometimes that doesn't work, especially shows that just started, because you may not have access to the most amazing guests in the world. You may have access to some great people that have great ideas, but maybe they don't have an amazing life, or they haven't done anything notable enough for it to be really interesting. But that doesn't mean they don't have experience and they don't have something to share with your audience. And that's where I say maybe you should come up with a content idea first, and come up with a topic and come up with a story, and then bring a guest in more as a contributor to that story, and somebody that maybe relates to that story in some way, and you can extract information from the guest based on that story or based on that idea of the show, right? The idea of the episode. So, for example, let's say I'm a finance advisor and I want to create a podcast. Instead of bringing a good financial advisor and just interviewing him about how he got into the finance industry and certain mistakes he has done in the past, and just generic questions, which I'm guilty of as well. I've done that as well. The show becomes average. That's the problem. Instead of doing that, you come up with a topic, a problem that people face, and you start digesting that problem. You start looking at that problem from different angles, and you have a script prepared for that, an outline, and you and the guest have a conversation based on those problems and try to explain how you can do that. Maybe you should invest your money in that fund or do that and stuff like that. And that's going to create an episode where people actually take something out of it. There's something to take out of the episode. There's knowledge, there is story, there is narrative, and this is kind of like my first tip. And if you do this with your podcast, you're going to see that it will have more success. Now, how do you look for stories? And how do you come up with ideas and see where the demand is? What you can do is go on Google, for example, and start typing certain things in your industry and see what Google recommends based on the search results and things like that. You can use tools such as Ahrefs or SEMrush and go after keywords that have big popularity and see what people are asking. Another popular one is a tool from Neil Patel. I'm going to link it down in the show notes. I think it was called
7 hours later.
Answer the Public. I think that was the name. Answer the Public. and you can go there and based on a certain keyword that you input there, you're gonna get a wheel, and you're gonna get all sorts of topics and ideas. Also, another thing that you can do is going to certain media outlets in your industry and see what they're covering. If they're covering a certain topic, that means it's important. They've done already the research, so you might want to just copy that, for example. Or you can go on YouTube and see what other YouTubers are doing. Don't necessarily copy them, but just see where the demand is. If you see that in finance, you've got, let's say, where to invest your money as a young adult in your 20s, maybe that's a topic that deserves attention. And if you see loads of views, a lot of people are watching that. So that means there's something maybe you want to discuss on your podcast. So that's what I would do to start with as a first tip. Now, second is high quality production. Without that, the first one doesn't work, right? Because if your production is bad and you don't have a good image, you don't have good audio, it's just going to fall apart, unfortunately. And yes, it's not cheap to do that. You need good quality equipment, or you may even need a podcast production company like mine to help you out with, but it's definitely important. And there are a few reasons why it's important. Obviously, the retention of the audience. How many people will actually stick and stay and listen to your podcast, to your episodes, and then come back, right? Because there's nothing worse than just reverby audio or very pixelated video. Now, I'm a professional and it's more annoying to me, but even for the average Joe, it's quite annoying. And they may not stick around for too long, especially since podcasting started to become competitive. Now, another reason which you may not think about is the quality of guests you can bring on a show, because your friend that is a financial advisor may not have a problem with the equipment you're using and the quality of your show. He just wants some exposure. But if you want to get somebody that is notable enough, somebody that is very well known, that person will not come on a bad recorded podcast. And I've been a guest on some bad recording podcasts, and I didn't share them with my audience because I just didn't feel good about them. Like, they didn't make me look good, very poor editing, and it's just not good. So guests are looking into this. And if you want to get good guests on your show, you definitely want to record a good podcast and produce it properly. Now, number 3, and now we start to get into the exciting stuff. You want to pitch your podcast to media outlets. Now, a lot of people don't think about this because they don't understand the value of it, but I'm going to tell you exactly why you should do that. First thing first, when you get published in big media outlets within your industry, you get direct traffic, referred traffic from those websites. And everybody that's going to visit that page, they will click on a link and they're going to get to your show. Or even better, if that media placement can be done via an embed video or audio, you get direct traffic from there and people start listening to your show from there. So that's very good because it's very niche, it's targeted to your specific audience, and it's really, really useful. Now, you also get backlinks for any placement you get. Most media outlets will be happy to include a backlink to your podcast, to your website, to whatever online entity you have, but the best would be to send your link directly to your website, because it will make your website go up in rankings, and it will help you increase the authority of it. And it also increases something what I call and the industry calls EEAT. Now, that stands for experience, expertise, authoritiveness, and trustworthiness. And this is what Google kind of measures when ranks websites on Google. So if you want to be on the first page, you want to tap into this, and podcasting helps you with that, but it doesn't help you if you don't push it further than just Spotify, iTunes, Amazon Music, and so on. You want to push it further, and you want to pitch yourself as an expert and go on media outlets and pitch your podcast and pitch your knowledge. Now, how do you do that? Because probably you may ask, exactly how do I do that? Now, I'm gonna post specific videos about this on the YouTube channel. So if you're interested, subscribe, and I'm going to show you different methods on how to do that. But just to describe it a little bit, what you need to do, there's the manual way. You can go to loads of media outlets within your industry, and some media outlets, they've got specific pages where you can submit a story. For example, in my industry, I would go to Hollywood Reporter or Deadline, and there are specific buttons. There's like get a tip. You press on that button, and then you provide your story, and hopefully they will cover it. That is the easiest way to do it, but the problem is that you may not get an answer. Another way would be to go and find specific contacts at that publication, contact them, pitch your story, and see if they approve it. Another way would be to go on websites, platforms such as Featured or Quoted. Now, I've got a bad story with Quoted because they banned my account for whatever reason, and that's really annoying, but I'm gonna tell you about that in another video. But you've got basically loads of reporters asking questions there, and then you can answer them from the perspective of your podcast, and then you can obviously get published. So you can get published on any website, because loads of newspapers, media outlets, magazines, they ask questions in there, and if they fit your narrative, you can definitely answer them. And there's another one called used to be called HARO, which stands for Help a Reporter Out. Now that got to be Featured. It was bought by Featured, but there is a similar one which is called sourceofsources.com, and this one is run by Peter Shankman. I don't want to pronounce his name wrong, but his newsletter is really awesome. So you can go there, you just input your email in there, and this one is free. Quoted and Featured are not free, but this one is a free resource. You can go there, and every morning, afternoon, and evening, you're going to get an email with reporters asking questions, and you can answer those questions, and hopefully you're gonna get covered. Now, this one, you can just walk away from the video right now, because this one, it's already a tip that will definitely help you grow your podcast, but I have more. Before I move forward, I want to give a shout out to my company, SaaSpod. If you want to start a podcast, you might want to consider SaaSpod for your show. We've got a podcast hosting platform you can use, which is really, really cool. It's really affordable, and you can post your podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, you name it. And then you can also use our podcast production services. We've got podcast consultations, podcast post-production services, pre-production services, press releases, you name it. We've got everything, and we can make your podcast a success. So if you're interested to work with me and my team, go to saaspod.com, and you're going to find a form somewhere there, or a tidy call calendar, and you can book a call with me and make your podcast work. So thank you so much, and now let's go back to the video. Number 4, content repurposing. Now, many people think about content repurposing from a social media angle, where they say you should start a podcast, create episodes, and then chop it into different reels and create graphics and share them on your social media. Now, I don't say you shouldn't do that, but I think that's not the first thing you should do, because Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or X, TikTok, they own the audience. You don't own the audience. You just create a profile there, and if they want to shut your account down, there you go. Goodbye. You don't have access to that audience anymore, and that's a problem. And that almost happened in the US with TikTok, right? So you don't want to focus on that first. What you want to focus on is creating your own platform and grow your audience on your own platform instead, and show up on Google. That's what you want to focus on first, because in my opinion, it's easier to do that than growing on all those social media platforms, unless you pay. Because if you pay, it's a lot easier to grow on these platforms. They want you to pay. You can do it organically if you really think about it thoroughly and on how to do it. And you also should create content outside of the podcast in order for that to work. But on Google, you can just create a podcast episode. You turn that into an article. And when you do that, and if you do it right with the right SEO techniques, which I'm not going to touch on in this video, I'm going to create a future video about that. If you do it right, you're going to appear in the first 3 results on Google. And when you do that, you get most of the traffic on a specific query. So for example, somebody searches how to get rich in your 20s, something like that. And maybe you talked about that on the show with your guest, you are going to get most of the clicks, and the people that will land on your page, they will have access to an embedded YouTube video and an embedded audio player, and they can listen to your show and they become fans of your show and hopefully return back. And it's a lot easier to do that than being temporarily on a platform such as Instagram, because you post a reel and the reel stays there for just a few days, maybe a week at most, and then it's dead and nobody sees it anymore unless they visit your profile. With Google, you get listed there forever. If your episode is good and if your article was written well, you're there forever, and that's really, really valuable. And on top of that, you start getting mentioned into the LLMs. When you get mentioned into the LLMs, where most of the traffic starts to move there, you obviously are ahead of the curve with your podcast. You go where the people are searching for information. That plays very well with everything else I shared so far, creating good content and media placements. When you get that, you get more authority, and it's more likely for that to happen. And because you may have a good guest on the podcast and you may quote certain things that this guest said on the podcast, you may appear on LLMs even more, because if that guest is famous, you borrow his fame. Let's say somebody's looking for Arnold Schwarzenegger, for example. Let's say you had him on the show, and somebody asks like last appearances of Arnold on shows, and then you're gonna get a list of mentions. And it is more likely for the guests to share their podcast with the audience. So for example, if you've got an article, they want to share that article with the audience. The people are getting straight on your website instead of a third party, and you get more traffic. So it's a no-brainer, and you should do that. So create an article with a focus keyword. You need to look for a keyword that is easy to target, it's easy to rank for. You want to make sure that it has enough traffic and volume, and you want to create the article around that keyword, around that topic, and then embed an episode within the article. We embed it as a video, as an audio, and then use quotes from the podcast. Definitely quote the podcast, like what they said, what the guest said in the podcast, borrow that and put it into the article. Number 5, run ads to get traffic to your show. Now, this may not work if you don't do the groundwork. What you want to do is make sure that you run a good show. If your show doesn't work organically, that means it's not a good show. And that means you basically run ads for an average show that will not grow at all. Numbers are just numbers. If it doesn't create buzz by itself, that means it's not a good show. If you run ads, give it a try, see what happens, but don't do that. And when you see loads of numbers flooding your show, you get all excited and you start putting a lot of money into it. That's not how it works, because when you run ads, the people that are coming to your show, they may not be the target audience. And if they don't come back, it's not worth it. So they need to become loyal fans. That's what you want to do. And if you run ads well and you know how to do it, you will increase the exposure for your show, definitely. Another thing that will happen is obviously it will increase the numbers of your accounts, let's say the numbers of your YouTube channel subscribers, Instagram followers, Facebook followers, and so on. And it will definitely make you look more legit, and more people will start, like more organic people will start listening to it. And obviously media placements look into this as well when they take a decision to feature you or not. You must have a strategy to retain the people that are coming to your show from this campaign. So if you run an ad campaign, make sure that you run it for the right target audience, and then you must ensure that these people come back to you. So there should be some way you could extract their information so you can retarget them and get them back into the cycle. And you should not depend on this only, and this should be something you should do only later on down the road once you start getting some traction with the organic reach. And then you should think about, look, I want to expand a little bit more. I want to invest some money into advertising. And there are many ways you could advertise. It's not just Facebook or Instagram or Twitter or whatever. It's also Spotify, for example. Go and run an ad on Spotify where people listen to podcasts, or YouTube, or it could be other things that you never thought about. This, for example, newspapers, sometimes they run ads campaigns, and you could get into a magazine that people read all the time, and they can feature you there, and you pay per impression or whatever that works. Maybe that's a better target audience if it's a specific media outlet for finance advisors or whatever your target audience is, or people that want to learn finance. Maybe you should go there and run an ad there instead. So there's many ways of doing it. Number 6, send a press release to promote your show. Now, many people don't think about this when they start a podcast, and why wouldn't you do that? Because when you release a podcast, it should be a major event. So you as a company or as an influencer, you should signal and you should tell the world, look, I released this podcast, come and listen to it. And in many cases you can embed YouTube videos or players into the press release, and that gets featured on many websites, and you can get on all sorts of different publications, in newswires and press release directories. And sometimes certain publications, they are looking for stories, and they may find your story attractive, and they will feature it into an editorial, for example. So it also allows you to submit press releases to other non-official, let's say, newswires. So for example, you can submit to Pod News, to Discover Pods. There are all sorts of different websites where they accept press releases, and you can send it there. You won't believe how many opportunities you get from something like this, because when I released my a feature that I created on SaaSpod on Pod News, I got covered on a media outlet. It was completely passive, and submitting a press release on Pod News is completely free. They have very strict guidelines on how to do it. They don't cover everything, but you could definitely try and do that on Discover Pods as well. And there's other media outlets there that you could try manually. So you could send a newswire press release, which would send it to 700 publications, but you can then manually go and target certain publications and send a press release to them, and they may feature your story. And then obviously you're gonna get a ton of backlinks from this, because you're gonna get on so many websites. And yes, most will be no follow, but a lot of people say that no follow links are better than no links. So definitely you might want to do that. It will increase the authority for sure. And for this, you should use a PR service. Now, if you want to use SaaSpod for that, we can help you with that. So just get in touch, and we can definitely help your podcast succeed. Number 7, get podcast reviews on Apple. To get podcast reviews on Apple is extremely hard. The reason for that is because the platform is a bit clunky. So when people try to leave reviews, they don't know exactly how to do it. And I'll come back to this in a second, but one way you should do it, you could ask your guests to leave reviews on your show. It's completely legit because at the end of the day, they are part of the show. They probably listen to your show, and you could ask them after you recorded the episode with them. You can ask them, tell them, look, can you leave a review to my show? They may not do that. So a lot of people, what they do, and it's a bit sneakier. I don't like doing that, but you could do it if you want to do it. You could ask them to complete a form, and as part of the form, they should leave a review on your Apple podcast in order to be a guest on the show. If you're that important as a podcaster, you would enforce that, and every guest would count to a review, and that will just grow your show. You have 100 episodes, you've got 100 reviews. Another way would be to ask your audience, obviously, but they won't do it. They just won't do it. It's really hard for people to do it because it doesn't feel handy. So what I would advise you do is in the show notes, add a guide on how to leave a review on Apple Podcasts. And I can share with you my own guide, and you can paste it within your show, and you're welcome to do that. And put it there and just tell them, look, there is a link in the show notes on how to leave a review on Apple Podcasts. Follow that process and leave a review on my show, and they would follow through and they will do that. It's more likely they will do it instead of just telling them, look, leave a review, and everybody's like, how do I leave a review? You know what I mean? If you tell them to click on a link and do that from there, it's much likely that they're gonna do it. And final tip, and I think this one is a little bit, everybody said it, and I will say it, but it's really important you do that, is to be consistent. If you run a podcast, try to be consistent. Let's say you run 10 episodes, try to run them every 2 weeks or every month or every week, whatever your schedule is. Keep it realistic. It's no problem if you take a break after 10 or 20 episodes. It's not an issue, but you must do it for an extensive amount of time. Like, should be at least 10 episodes, and then you can take a pause of a few months and then you can start again and whatever. But don't do one episode now and then 4 months down the line you do another one, and after 2 weeks you do another one. You don't want to do that. What you want to do is have it to be predictable, so people know when that happens, and also the algorithms, they understand when your show gets out, and it will be more likely to grow this way, especially on Apple Podcasts, for example, and even YouTube. So these are my tips. I hope you enjoyed this particular video. I hope you took something out of it, because it's really important to me that you feel this content is valuable. If you have any questions, leave them down in the comments, and subscribe to this YouTube channel, because what I'm gonna do is take all these steps that I mentioned and make specific videos about them. So if you want to be kept up to date with that, definitely subscribe to the channel. And if you want to work with me, and if you want to start your own podcast, you want to grow it, you don't want to go through all of these, definitely get in touch with me. You can find me at saspa.com/contact us. And you're going to find a form there or a calendar. You can book a call with me, and then we can talk about your show and hopefully make it a success. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.